Welcome to The Hustle with Ben Anderson, highlighting a series of inspirational success stories with celebrities, entrepreneurs, athletes, and industry-leading professionals. Ben has learned and mastered the art of the hustle, which has allowed him to become a top 20 USA loan originator and the #1 mortgage and real estate finance coach in America, who has closed more than $3 billion in real estate finance transactions. So sit back, listen, and learn with the Loan King about money and mortgage.
Welcome to The Hustle with myself, your host, Ben Anderson, with a special guest today, my great friend from Nebraska, Sarah Summers.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are
so
so
excited
welcome.
to be here. Welcome to New York.
Look, you are the first Miss USA from Nebraska.
Yes.
Is that true?
It's true. That's fact.
How does that title feel?
It's pretty surreal.
Is it?
To be making history in that way.
It is.
Growing up, I always dreamt of competing at Miss USA.
But to be the first and to be a pioneer and a creator of that title.
Never envisioned winning at all.
Right.
And so for all of those young women that foresee their state or their height or their career path as an obstacle, I get to be that breakthrough.
Champion. So I want to unpack your story because to be there just didn't happen because you showed up.
Amen.
Work went into it.
Absolutely.
And there's legacy there. But this show's called The Hustle, and the best part about it is I get to find out what makes you unique and special. And it's because of your DNA and who raised you and all the things that are your culture. So talk about where you're from and how that shaped yourself.
Of course. Being from Nebraska, I was born and raised just so close to all my family, grandparents, cousins, everyone.
Right.
And so that gave me the heart behind who I am and the desire to be close to family and love on other people. That's where all of that comes from. When I was younger, I was hospitalized, and that really shaped my entire career and outlook on life. I was hospitalized at 5 years old.
What happened?
I had ITP.
What's ITP?
Idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura.
Oh my
Sounds
goodness.
way scarier. Thankfully, I had an acute diagnosis, so it can be chronic. Very fortunate that it was just acute, but I was 5 years old, and that's the first time. Let's be real. You don't remember things from when you're 5.
No.
But I do remember taking on the emotions of my parents because they were so scared. Like,
Sure.
I'd never seen my dad scared in my life, right? He's the champion of the household. And it was a blood cell disorder because originally they were thinking leukemia when I went in with all my bruises on my body.
Oh my goodness.
And so from that day forward, I saw, yes, the fear in my parents, but how was I going to help parents like that moving forward? So I wanted to work in children's hospitals, in PR. That was my goal. I ended up going out of state for college, which
TCU.
was TCU, yes. And because my entire family was in Nebraska, that was a big leap for me.
Right.
It was still in the same time zone, which was a rule from my dad that I didn't understand at the time. But once I had my first college heartbreak, mom flew down.
Yep.
I got it.
You got it.
I got it then. Good job, Dad. So going to college, I really took my parents' ability to take whatever be in front of them and give 100%. Whether that was jobs that I worked in college, I worked at Lululemon Athletica, I was a Pilates instructor. I had various jobs in college while doing 2 degrees in 4 years. So
it's a lot there.
Definitely when you said the hustle, that's what I was thinking of. I was thinking, wow,
hustle.
The 2 degrees in the 4 years
That's
and
amazing.
the jobs.
Cum laude?
Cum laude. Did you read that?
Congratulations. I read it. I can read.
Yes, thank you.
So let's back up to, people would look at the package that's here in front of us today and say, wow, things are easy for you. You're a fitness instructor, you worked in college, you probably just got your way and you won by just standing still. But that's not true. You put work in, and a lot of who you are, the character who you are, the passion for kids and the things you've done are because of how you saw things as a child. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about that. So I'd love to know what happened before the hustle began, what gave you your hustle, and what makes you unique.
Absolutely. So when I was 5, like I said, only in the hospital for a few days, but my parents were horrified. And that was the first time I was really separated from my older brother. And I started volunteering when I was in the junior high. And I know a lot of questions I get sometimes is, do you think volunteerism should be required for high school graduation? And volunteering completely shaped who I am in tandem with my family, of my heart.
So why did you volunteer? Was it something that someone asked you to do, or did you just reach out?
I expressed interest to my parents at 10 years old is when I started, and I started making blankets. I was on a volleyball team, you know, the All-American, did all the all the sports, not necessarily great at it. So I was the cheerleader of my volleyball team, but we started with a project called Project Linus, where we all made fleece tie blankets and donated them to children in hospitals.
That's awesome.
And that really resonated with me, thankful for my coaches in that day that made our team do that. And so I continued that. I've made over 500 fleece tie blankets for children in hospitals because when I was so busy, you can make those blankets at home and then go donate them, right? It didn't, in high school when I was so busy, I didn't have to dedicate a certain number of hours every, say, Tuesday, because that wasn't attainable for me. It was flexible, but I still was able to give back to people that were in that same position I was with my family.
And you're very much into health and fitness. We're talking about, you know, slugging the bag a few minutes ago. And a lot of that comes from some of the habits you saw in your family. So what things did you see as a younger girl that made you realize that this battle is real?
Oh, so being from Nebraska, yes, we would go and play kickball in the circle that I grew up in, but otherwise, moving to New York, it's much more physical here. People walk more. People ride their bikes. You see people working out in the park. That's not traditional in the Midwest, at least where I come from and how I was raised. And so I watched my dad used to always run, but he was just kind of, that was his thing, and that was my dad independently, not as a family. My mom, I grew up always watching her struggle with her weight. She did every single diet under the sun. And I tell you, watching this my whole life, I mean, probably from the moment I was born. And finally, my brother was about to graduate from high school, and she was really close to getting surgery. And that was a really hard time. My brother and I are 6 years apart, so I was about to enter junior high, watching my mom
That's
openly.
an impressionable age.
Oh, yeah. That's when you're starting to gain independence, starting to gain your own views on everything. And so I remember watching my mom openly discuss this possible surgery. She decided to try one last diet, if you will, before going that far, and it was so different because they didn't send her meals. It was essentially sitting down once a week and teaching her portions, and she lost 75 pounds. And that was a struggle. It wasn't overnight by any means, but I watched it all happen. And then when I was in junior high, I'd go shopping with my mom, and she'd try on a dress size that she never thought she'd fit into and be so excited and cry in the dressing room. And those moments are what has stayed with me in my memory and on my heart. And when I then, flash forward a few years, had the desire to compete at Miss Teen USA, it was the first time I ever went on a diet. Because after I won Miss Nebraska USA, I had a Teen USA, pardon me. So I was 16 years old. I had a sponsor that gave, you know, your fitness plan and your nutrition plan, and I can still recite that to you today. And that was 7 years ago.
Wow.
Exactly. Down to the cup, the number of almonds.
That's crazy they'll put a girl, because I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter, and it's like I can't imagine all that pressure and what you have to eat at that age and what that must do to girls that compete.
Right, and at that age, I didn't understand the difference between dedication and obsession, and I was certainly obsessed.
But how can you? Your mind's not even fully formed. You don't really
Right.
have the tools to make that judgment as
Exactly.
a teenager.
Exactly. And when I decided to compete, my dad said, all right, I'll do this thing with you. So he cut out the pasta, cut out all of that.
Let me back up. What was the diet?
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, so at 6 a.m., even if I didn't have to wake up that early, I would wake up to eat. I would have a half a cup of egg whites, a half a scoop of protein powder, a certain kind, and 12 almonds. Okay.
You count the almonds.
You count the almonds.
Now, what if an almond is kind of cracked? Do you add a cracked almond to make it a whole almond?
I don't remember. But I can tell you there were nights in my teenage years when I would have 15. And this sounds ridiculous now, but I was told, you know, this is your sponsor to help you succeed. Do what they say. And so I did. Right?
So you think you're committed, but
Oh,
you're
yeah.
just getting obsessed.
Oh, I was absolutely obsessed. And then I was just crushed when I did not place at Miss Teen USA. Crushed.
Was that your first time
My first time.
that you didn't place?
No. Starting my pageant journey, I competed for 5 years before I won my state title.
Pageants are no joke.
No. Well, my first time I didn't place at all, and then my second time I got 4th runner-up, and I cried so much on stage that looking back now, people probably thought that I was upset, but I was just so happy.
You were happy to win.
I
Yeah,
was so
those are
happy.
happy tears.
Yes. So it took 5 years, and now when I see young girls, I love to stand around after pageants and look for the really sad ones, because I then share my story with them. Hey, I didn't win for 5 years, and then I was Miss USA.
Yes.
So it's fine. You're gonna be fine.
There's room to grow.
Absolutely. So my dad took me under his wing, and we kind of did that as a daddy-daughter thing, and then he continued that as a lifestyle. 100%. He's like the most fit 50-year-old man you'll ever see in your
That's
life.
rad.
Oh, absolutely. He's got an 8-pack. It's ridiculous. More fit than my fiance,
He should
but I love
compete.
them both. No way. Absolutely not.
You wouldn't let them go through all that?
In pageants?
No, like, 'cause they should be a 50-year-old man competition. I could strive for that in about 15 years.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
In the physique world and whatnot.
It'll
Not really
happen.
his thing. He's a banker.
There's Ironmans. There's things for
Yeah.
dads to do.
Yeah.
So you win your first teen pageant,
Mm-hmm.
and how old were you then?
I was 16.
16.
And so that's when I then got that diet plan, did the fitness with my dad, went to Miss Teen USA. He continued it as a lifestyle. And I said, oh no, I can go back to eating just like I used to. You know,
How was
all the
that?
mac and cheese. Not good. Because then once you go on this diet and you try to go back, it's not the same. Your body's adjusted differently now.
That's right.
And so that was my biggest wake up call of, wow, now what? This is never going to be the same. And so I had to figure out to maintain, and you consume what's healthy for your body. But from that moment when I had the epiphany a few months after Miss Teen USA and I had gained some weight, I said, wow, when I go back, because like I said, always dreamt of going to Miss USA. When I go back to Miss USA, I want to be able to be a realistic example for young women and have a true, healthy mindset balance between fuel, like the food that you eat and put into your body, and your fitness regimen.
That's right.
So that's what I did.
And so then from there, you had 2 years, you went to TCU, and you told me before that that was an even bigger aha, because you realized
yeah.
that there are bigger problems in college with eating and women than there is in the pageant world.
Absolutely.
And you've seen roommates go through crazy things. I mean, this is getting like psychological at this point, because now you're old enough to know, but you're doing things for like the wrong reasons now. So what was that chapter like, seeing that and going to college?
In college, especially in the Midwest, you always hear the freshman 15. That was not the case for me when I went to college at TCU. Watching the women around me, you hardly saw anyone gain weight, you saw them lose it. Whether that was from stress or by choice or the influence of those around them. TCU, unfortunately, is one of the largest private universities in the nation for eating disorders, and I saw that firsthand. I'd never seen smaller legs in my life than I did walking around campus. It was shocking to me to see it, and I think I noticed right off the bat, but when some people didn't notice and you had the conversation with them, they'd say, wow, you're right. This is not normal. This isn't what it's like when you leave campus or leave the state or leave the town. And so I think when you go to college, you have independence for the first time. Everything social is around eating and drinking, right?
That's right.
So some of the women that I would see, it's a real issue of not eating all day in order to consume your calories and alcohol later. And it was just horrible to watch that happen. My junior year of college, I had a roommate develop what went from the obsession that I had with food moderation and specific foods to anorexia, and she shriveled from a size 8 to a size 2 in a matter of months. Hers wasn't because of any of those reasons we mentioned. She was a senior and thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my life? I'm about to graduate and I really don't know what's next.
A lot of pressure.
Oh, exactly. So much pressure. And in those moments, the things that you can control become what you fixate on. So she could control how often and what time she worked out every day and what she ate.
Right.
But she couldn't control what was going to happen after she graduated.
Right.
So that's what we had to watch, and it was really, really hard. We ended up going to the administration and seeking help because it was affecting all of us. I don't know about you, but I get really hangry.
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 Yes.
Do you get hangry?
All the time. I can go a whole day and not eat, and I get home and I have to eat before I even see my kids because I'm so
Oh, yeah.
famished sometimes.
Exact famished.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a real word, I think.
I just get really cranky and irritable, and that's what she was like all the time. You'd get a passive-aggressive eye roll if you were cooking in the kitchen, or She was just hangry all the time. And so that was really hard on us, like you said, psychologically. But those are the moments that grow you as a person and help you prioritize. For me, exactly that instilled in me. I wanted to be a realistic person.
You know, you had the chance to see it early in what your mother had gone through. So this wasn't the first time that you were seeing those kinds of patterns. So you were pretty self-aware of what was going on with people.
Right.
So talk about your journey from graduating college. There's a lot of work with children that you did. I understand where that heart comes from because as a child, you had some challenges with your health.
So when I was a junior, so it's the same year that everything's happening in my apartment, I was volunteering at the local children's hospital on a different capacity that I had in the past, right? I had always gone and visited and worked at events and donated the blankets, right? But I'd never dedicated myself a certain number of hours, the same day every single week. So I was volunteering on the med-surg floor within the child life department, and I had no idea what that meant. My first day, I was under my supervisor, and she was telling me what her job was, and I said, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life.
You just felt it?
I knew it. Have you ever had anyone ask you if you could do something for the rest of your life, every single day, and money didn't matter, what would you do?
Yeah.
What would you do?
I would be a personal trainer.
Okay.
That was the best job I ever had. I was in college and I was training. And I would train 20 hours even almost like in a day sometimes. Like straight, just because you're hanging out with people, you know, they're coming to you for, you're like a psychologist and you're helping them get to their goals and you're also exercising straight. So it's the best job ever.
Exactly.
And no one's really mad at the gym. Your endorphins are kicking. It's a happy place. There's music playing. So
there you go.
Yeah, I'd go back to being a personal trainer again.
I would always answer that question with, I would play with kids in the hospital every day.
That's great.
And given playing with kids in the hospital, it can't be really a career and make you money. That wasn't a possibility for me. And then when I learned what child life is, I said, oh my gosh, this is as close as I'm ever going to get. I don't have to do PR in a children's hospital. I can still interact with them. So I called my advisor, I called my parents, and my dad said, as long as you still finish in 4 years and finish your current degree that you're almost done with, sure. So I ended up doing a completely separate degree because none of my prerequisites were the same.
So you had to double down on your degrees. You got two.
Oh yeah, not even 2 majors, 2 degrees.
2 degrees.
Yeah, no, that was ridiculous. But I'm really glad that I did because I still use all of it. Oh yeah, my first one was a Bachelor of Science with a minor, or a Bachelor of Science in Strategic Communication with a minor in business. So I studied abroad with the business minor, and that was one of the best decisions of my life. I went to Peru.
Very cool.
I slept in the Amazon basin.
That's amazing.
I was in a canoe right next to alligators. I don't call it a study abroad, I call it an adventure abroad. But that's really when I felt truly independent for the first time as a young woman. I didn't go on this trip with, you know, my sorority sisters or my friends from college. I just went with my college and then made friends there. It was the coolest experience.
Just unplugged, huh? Just went
Oh yeah, it was amazing. I wish
that
I had.
Was there kids there that you connected with in the Amazon in Peru?
We met some children in a remote village that had no technology.
That's so cool.
And that was amazing to see.
So no cell phones, no iPads, no internet.
No television.
They were probably so much happier too.
Oh yeah, they were helping their mom. They were playing with the llamas.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
That world actually exists.
Right?
That's cool.
Isn't that fascinating?
Here we are in the middle of Manhattan and there's buildings to the moon.
Right.
And people in Peru are probably happier.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Up for debate.
Yes.
So you're doing your work. Let's get back on the circuit of how you became the crown that you have.
Yeah. So I had always dreamt of competing at Miss USA. My senior year of college, I chose to compete in Miss Nebraska USA. I essentially would tell anyone that I was competing to get my feet wet because there's a difference between teen and Miss, right?
Yes.
The walk's different. There's a swimsuit competition. The interview questions are different.
Questions, right?
So different. You have to be aware of what's going on in the world, form an opinion about it, and be able to articulate it on the drop of a hat.
Very judged and a lot of opinions about what you say and don't say.
Oh yeah. And so being in college with finishing those 2 degrees and watching the news every day and trying to have a social life, I just wanted to compete to get my feet wet and see what I was getting myself into. And then, of course, the week of came, and then my competitive edge came out, and I was like, oh man, now I think I want this.
Yep. You done did it now.
Right. So I got second runner-up, and then I graduated, and then I had to complete my clinical rotations. So I went to Oklahoma City, and I was doing 40 hours a week, unpaid, in the ICU, the PICU, helping parents understand
Wow.
what a trach is, how they're going to never hear their child speak again.
So you had to have that conversation with a parent?
Oh yeah,
That's crazy.
that's what I would do in the PICU, help grief
were
and
they
bereavement.
from accidents or illnesses?
The one example I'm just referencing is I think he was about 8 years old, and they were in a car accident, and he became quadriplegic.
Oh my gosh.
And the other kids were fine in the car, and the mom was banged up and had a broken leg, but he
So
was
you had to
quadriplegic.
have that talk with the mom?
And the dad, yeah.
How did that even...
How does that
What are
go,
the words?
right?
What are the words?
There's no script.
No.
There's no script for emotion. There's no script for.
That's crazy.
So one thing that my supervisor did a wonderful job at is helping me learn that every single situation is unique. And as a certified child life specialist, there's not that script, and there's not necessarily the right way, but she was there to guide me into what has worked in the past. I had the most beautiful first ever loss that I can imagine. It was so beautiful. It was an infant that was born at home and then brought to the hospital. And it was a Mennonite family, which was a culture that I wasn't really aware of or knowledgeable of. So I did a lot of research before I interacted with them. And it was just the most surreal, I can't imagine a more beautiful death, right? And that's another thing we did was you don't use words like lost, because then the older siblings think they can find them. Like
That's-
lost and found, or
that's so
hide and
interesting.
seek. So death and dying are words that we had to use.
The real words, what really happened.
Exactly. And so that family with the infant that was dying sang all the family in the room. It was beautiful. And as a certified child life specialist, we did prints of the infant before she was gone. And it was so neat. So I definitely grew a lot. But at the end of those emotional days, I would go home and watch the news and work out. I would typically
And
watch
that was
the
after
news.
your second runner-up.
Right. This is after. So now I'm gearing up to go back.
So that, I mean, we don't call it a loss because it wasn't a loss, but that was that loss in a way because you didn't win.
Right.
Were lessons, and then you go to get other lessons. So
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure it's like all kind of just coming together.
100%. Exactly. And I think those moments in the hospital that people don't see have really shaped who I am and shape who the type of person I am when I react with people as a title holder. And so those long days after the hospital, I would go home and work out and watch the news at the same time. And then I'd have homework.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd do it again. And I was in a foreign city, in Oklahoma City. I didn't know anyone, and that was hard. My fiance, who wasn't my fiance at the time, was in Dallas, so about 3 hours away. He'd come up every so often. About the last month of my internship, my mom came down and stayed with me in Oklahoma City because I was trying
just
to
needed her.
meal prep. It was December, and I was getting ready to compete in Miss Nebraska USA again in January. I needed mom.
Yeah, in the holidays, you don't be alone for the holidays.
I went home, so my internship ended the week before the holidays, which was nice.
The
But
trip's done now. But the semester wasn't over yet, though, or was it over?
internship, so I had already graduated college, so this clinical rotation was outside of college. My degree is done. I had to have the clinical rotations in order to sit for my big old certification exam.
Right.
So now the rotations are done. I have about 2.5 weeks before I step on stage at Miss Nebraska USA, and then about 2 months before I take my big certification exam.
No pressure.
So everything's happening. I moved back home. I compete in Nebraska, and I did have a different mindset. I went to win this time.
Yeah, you weren't competing to win the last week. You were the entire time.
Right. Exactly.
You were-
So that whole fall semester, I was preparing to win in January, because reality set in of adulting, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that if I were to get a full-time job as a certified child life specialist and then compete, I couldn't just up and leave for Miss USA for 2.5 weeks if I had a job.
This is like your last really good chance
Right.
to make it work.
Exactly. So I do applaud the women. The current Miss USA is 28 years old, and she is a lawyer. And so
Wow.
I can't imagine having a full-time job.
It's amazing. Women are so strong. I mean, men are sissies. I mean, I'll be honest, because I mean, women can run businesses, have kids, and manage a household. You
Y'all
know, like,
definitely are sissies when it comes to being sick.
worse. Tell me about it. Like, we need throat drops and Theraflu and
And all the whining and attention.
moms can't get sick. Like, it's actually in the manuscript that you sign when they hand you your kid at the delivery. They say, sign right here that you'll never be sick.
Oh my gosh.
So,
So funny.
Talk about you won Nebraska.
I did.
So success breeds confidence, or how did it go from there? Did you go right into the...
So one thing that I don't widely talk about, because at the moment I didn't look at it as a positive. I thought of it as a big old negative. So Nebraska, smaller population in general, right? Nebraska pageant land, even smaller. So the typical average we'd have would be competing against about 20 women. I competed with 7. And I thought, oh, well, I won against 7. Like, that doesn't sound as awesome as I won against 100 like Miss Texas.
Right.
So I wouldn't really talk about that. But then when I went to Miss USA and I won, little things like competing with 7 at home, it didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
Because it was the person that won, not the number of contestants you competed with.
That's right.
And that was a big old epiphany for me too.
So what was it like to, go through the process of the interviews and the questions? Because someone like, we watch the outside looking in, but we don't know necessarily all the things that they throw at you, or if you're prepared. Do they script the questions?
No.
Do they really come hard? Are they judging? What is that?
You have no idea.
That's what I'm asking. I've got no
until
idea.
you no. Even the contestant, you have no idea until you walk in, after you leave the room, because there might be judges that want to know about you. There might be judges that want to know how you maintain your poise under pressure of a horrifying question that's really political, per se. And so you just don't know. So you have to be comfortable and confident going in no matter what you're going to be thrown. And so for me, what gave me the full peace of mind was being prepared to the best of my ability. And so I would listen to podcasts. I'd read the BBC updates on my phone.
Preparation is so important. And you were prepared because, you made a life of preparation. You had to prepare
Right.
to give parents bad news. You had to prepare to pass your test. You had to prepare to take 2 exams. You had to prepare against 7 or 7,000, didn't really matter.
Right.
But you'd been preparing very often, so you were prepared to be prepared.
So what that preparation meant for me, though, to give me the peace, was I'm prepared to the best of my ability. So God forbid they ask me about an event that happened last night when I was already asleep. If so, that's just mean. And I'm going to be okay saying, well, here I am, Sarah Rose Summers. This is what I've been doing. I've been reading all this. I've been watching. I've been listening to podcasts. And of course, you ask me about something I don't know. And I'd laugh about it, and I'd say, we're all human. And I think that makes you closer to the judges, because the judges are just people too. And if you're real and you don't make up some answer, it sounds crazy, but some girls do that. That breaks down that barrier, that facade.
I think that is so much more powerful than even what you just said, because that goes into business, that goes into getting job interviews, that goes into, meeting your significant other, because the truth comes out eventually.
Right.
If you just lay it out there, then there's no judgment. Like, you are who you are, and you live with the results.
Exactly.
So you just were prepared, and you were confident in your preparation, and you were going to let the chips fall where they did, and they fell towards you in a very good way. So what was how confident were you after the questions, and what were the questions? What was the most difficult question they asked you?
Ooh, in my interview at Miss USA, now you're making me think. This was 15 months ago. Ooh, they asked me, so it's panel interview, like you would think of a press conference, and I had 2 panels on either side of the room. One panel was really oriented on me and my bio, and the other was more current events, political, how I would respond in certain situations. And then my on-stage questions were what I can remember, because you can watch those back. So my first on-stage question it had to do with the rate of divorce in the country and how that affects the children. And I answered honestly, and I said, I'm so fortunate that my parents are together, and I know that's rare. But I have seen single moms, single dads at the bedside in children's hospitals, and they crush it. So that's how I answered the first one. And I felt, all right about it. Bummer I didn't have a specific, example from my own experience, but that's who I am. And then my next question was, it's the top 3, and we all get the same question. And they put these noise-canceling headphones on you.
So you can't hear?
You can't hear anything. My friend she said they were playing like some rap music in there. She was like, I was waiting for you to answer and I was dancing around. So it's not just noise canceling, they're playing music in your head, so you physically can't think about anything else. Yes, exactly. So that question was something to the effect of, if you were to go to a rally and I were giving you a poster board and a marker, what would you write on it?
Ooh.
And so my friend that was dancing with the headphones, she has a horrible story. This was when Me Too was really on the rise. She spoke about her sexual assault experience, and that's what she would write on there. So, Me Too. And then another woman had a brief experience being homeless, living out of her car, and so she wrote something about that. And for me, I answered first, so I didn't have to wear those horrifying headphones. And I laughed into the microphone with millions watching at home and a full auditorium, because I was like, you guys need to give me way more details.
Yeah.
I'm a logical person. You can't tell me I'm just going to some random rally. I need to know, is it for breast cancer? Is it for children? Is it for immigration?
Yeah, you would know where you were.
Right, exactly. So I said, well, this is a very hypothetical situation, but no matter where you're going, clearly you care about it. Like if you're going to X rally, it's because you're passionate about
True.
it. So I wrote down speak your voice, because you're passionate about it because of your experiences. I'm passionate about children's healthcare and immigration because of my experience as a child and then working with so many of them. So no matter where you're going, you're passionate about it. I'd write speak your voice. And then on top of that, we have to listen to each other. And that's when the crowd roared and I was like, wow.
You kind of crushed it.
Wow.
I mean, that's a super crush.
Which was funny because in my head I was like, I don't know, I need more details.
Yeah.
Yes.
You flipped it and then you crushed it.
Right.
That's impressive.
Thanks.
So when you won, what was the moment
Oh.
like? Because you didn't know what they had said, right?
So
or
because
could
I went
you got to
first,
listen to what they said?
I got to listen.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you probably kind of felt pretty confident.
Well, not necessarily. Because she spoke about her entire Me Too experience. We were all equally qualified. And it's at that level, it takes a certain understanding and humility that they're all qualified. You were all selected at your state level. You're all possibly prepared to take on Miss USA. So no, I had no idea still.
So when you actually then did get the news, what happened?
I was talked to with my friend from North Carolina, Kaylin Miller Keys. She's now in my wedding at the end of the year. And we both were telling each other, no matter who wins, we're going to visit the next one in New York City. And then when they announced that I won, that's kind of when I blacked out. I don't really remember it. I emotionally just left. And I had been so present the whole time. So present. Thought about, where's my family in the audience? Who am I making eye contact with? What do I feel like right now? And in that moment, I don't remember anything.
Well, you earned it, and look at all the things that went into the hustle before you won it.
Amen.
It couldn't have happened to a better person at a better time.
Well, thank you.
Because of what you'd gone through, seeing the women in your life change their body compositions, to your dad doing it for the right reasons, to you counting your 12 little almonds, to cum laudeing it in college and double degrees and all the children. So I love the story. Now we know what's behind that crown, and you're doing great things today. Talk about your podcast and why you started that.
Yes, so being Miss USA at 24 years old, a dream that I had never even spoken to in existence because I didn't think it was possibly attainable, was, as people say, your glory days, right? And as that was coming to an end, I thought, oh my gosh, now what? Because this amazing thing came and now it's past and it's just over. On the day you crown the next one, you're just a free bird.
Enjoy it, it's over.
Right, exactly. So I thought, what's next? I've developed this wonderful following. People really admired during my year that I spoke openly about my faith, was really candid, was that realistic,
That's
true
amazing.
example. And so what am I going to do with that? I'm not just going to throw it away and just move on. And I realized I enjoy speaking to people and sharing other people's stories as well as my own. So I started a podcast. It's called More Than a Crown. It's not a pageant podcast. I really wrestled with the title because I thought More Than a Crown would really put me in that niche market of pageantry, but it's not. It's, for me, that's what I'm more than. I'm more than that 1 year as Miss USA. I have so much more life to live and more to give and more to do and more to make an impact on. And so I interview people that have been influential in my life And then at the end of the podcast, I ask them what they're more than. So I've had amazing answers. I'm more than the likes on Instagram. I'm more than the number of items that I sell through my clothing line. I'm more than X, Y, and Z. It's been pretty amazing.
It's really stepping out behind what you do and being really who you are. Because what you do isn't who you are. It's just what you do now. But what you do changes all the time, you know. Talk to athletes on the podcast and they win Super Bowls and they don't know what to do with themselves. But I love that you're bringing that out from them so that they can have that identity. It's so crucial.
Right, because your identity can't be
The crown.
or
right.
your social feed, or I just think that that's what so many people in my generation are fixated on.
Really, I look at it like it's what's your true happiness. It's not what you do, it's who you are.
Right.
And so, big things coming too. You're engaged. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
That's a huge thing. Have you
Very.
picked out the dress yet?
Yes, I have. Thank goodness.
That's the biggest part of it.
I'm the most chill bride. Are you surprised?
How long until the wedding?
It's in October.
Okay, well, there's still 2 months.
My mom is not happy about it.
You're just, why are you so chill?
I think it was because my year as Miss USA, everything was planned for me, and it was all so glamorous. Now, I'm like, well, you know, we've invited the people we want to surround us that are going to love us on our big day. I have a dress. We have a venue. It'll be great. I don't care about the other details
I think
at
you'll
all.
just enjoy yourself and you'll have a great time.
That's what I'm
And
thinking.
that's what, I mean, it's not for them, even though it's for your guests, people just rush the day. You're going to have a nice time because
It's pretty
your mindset's
hysterical.
all right. No,
I don't have a cake. I don't care.
look, you can get one at Baskin Robbins. It doesn't really matter.
And hope it doesn't melt.
No one remembers how good the cake was or wasn't at the end of the day.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter. They're there for
Right.
you guys.
I'm pretty excited.
That's what makes it special.
Yes.
So before we wrap, there's so many great nuggets that any person who listens to this can get out of this. If you could summarize 1 or 2 things that you would like to leave on the line to help people understand that they are more than a crown, what would
Yeah.
those things be?
One thing that I always stress is we're all people, right? So like I was talking about when I was prepared to step into that interview room, nobody has it all together. Even if they win Miss USA or their social feed looks great, or if they're this spiffy and behind the hustle podcast, nobody's 110% all the time. We all have our ups and downs, and that's normal. And so knowing that gives you peace at the end of the day to lay your head on the pillow. But another thing that I love talking about is you can't compare yourself to others. And that's
true.
so hard.
It's hard.
It's so hard. My end of my year happened, and I was like, well, what are the other former Miss USAs doing with their lives?
Yeah.
Or
And
I
with
had
social
that
media, it's
heartbreak.
hard not to jump into that life too, because they're on vacation. I'm not on vacation. You know, that's what we do
That's
at
true
my house
too.
a lot of times.
Right. Well, their life looks nice.
Yeah.
So remembering that you can't compare yourself to others because no one's story is the same. Even if you have a biological twin and you were raised the same way your entire lives, you're not going to have the same passions, you're not going to be the same person. So remembering that and owning who you are
Owning it.
will give you so much more joy and so much more passion at the end of the day.
That's right. Well, beyond and beneath the crown is what you're doing for people, which is very inspiring. How can our audience, who, and I believe that we're buying this stock very low, to have people may think that you've reached your height, but from the character that I see, you're only starting.
Well, thank you.
So how can our audience and our friends and family get behind what you're doing and follow you?
Well, I have a website. It's sosararose.com, and I have fitness inspiration on there. But I also have started an online soft launch for my jewelry line, and it's all about female empowerment.
Love
So
it.
I have small bar necklaces. One says "worthy, empowered, and brave," because I took a poll,
Huge.
and those are the words that women wanted others to describe themselves as, or they wanted to describe their friends as that. And so
Huge.
I'm really marketing that as gifts for your girlfriends if they're in a low, or for yourself. How awesome to be able to buy
That is
something
cool.
for yourself that actually means something. And I have small rings on there as well.
So what are you wearing today?
Right now, my bar necklace actually says Miss USA
You
because
earned
it
it.
is something that is always going to be with me.
That's
Yeah.
right. Well, it's always what you've earned, but it's never who you are. And
Amen.
so thanks for being here,
Thank
sharing your
you.
family, your faith, your journey with us. And we'll become fast friends. And you're in Manhattan. Is it to stay? Or you
It's to stay for a while. We'll see. I'm really excited about getting more into hosting events, interviewing other people, sharing their stories like we talked about, but also working with foundations and being able to be that voice and that emotional pull. So we'll see what happens.
That is amazing. Well,
Thank
you've earned
you.
the hustle. You have the hustle, and you are the hustle.
Hey, thank you. You too.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
To follow our story, check us out at benanderson.365 on Instagram and stay tuned for our next honored guest.